YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. I wanted to do a quick Power Rangers related discussion video based on a quote from Simon Bennett from a recent interview that clarifies some things about Hasbro's plans for PR, or at least what their plans were. And I wanted to discuss my thoughts on it, on what it means for the future, and just a couple things for clarification. In a way also because I feel like a lot of people were in denial about what was going on with Power Rangers or thought it was just a rumor, but this is straight from somebody that was pretty high up within the Power Rangers production. Obviously he's not high up on Hasbro's infrastructure, but he's privy enough to know more information than, some of the sources you get in the scoopers that people don't necessarily trust. But I'll put up a screen grab from it. But effectively he says their plans were to do this reboot we've been hearing about, this more, slightly more mature, sophisticated, I think was the word he used, which I found to be kind of funny, just because I didn't expect to see that in talking about PR, but just a little more of an older leaning series, and that was the plan. And he mentions free from the shackles of the current continuity and Sentai, and basically, originally all that was for the most part on the table was Dino Fury Season 1, and Season 2 and Cosmic Fury were kind of stopgap seasons, as they wanted to keep the show going, fuel merchandise sales, and to keep the brand out there. Which is what I've been saying for a long time, is a lot about these recent seasons have felt like that, kind of felt like combination of contractual obligation and then them just wanting to keep the brand going a little bit for toy sales and just presence, and that's why everything felt sort of autopilot-y. I do really think that Dino Fury made some improvements in a lot of ways, but I also think that's why it didn't feel significantly different. It's because they effectively weren't that interested in changing things up all that much. They just kind of left the production in place as were. So it makes sense, and it kind of confirms a lot of things I've been saying for a long time. And I just feel like there's a lot of people that are still in denial. I still see people in the comments being like, what's the next adaptation going to be? I'm like, nothing. They're closed production. That's the thing, too, is that, Dino Fury Season 2 and Cosmic Fury, they were able to do for these sort of filler seasons because they already had the production in place, but after Cosmic Fury, they've shut down production in New Zealand. The entire production that's been working on the show, for a long time now, no longer exists. Now, that doesn't mean they can't start something back up. Of course, people are going to be like, well, yeah, they could start doing Sentai adaptions in Canada or whatever, but that's not impossible. Nothing's impossible with PR. They've thrown us some plot twists for sure, but I just really feel like if and when they start up production again, wherever they decide to, I highly doubt they're going to go through all the trouble of restarting a production just to do what they've been doing. I don't think a sort of close to traditional Sentai adaptation show like we've had is off the table for all time. They could fail at 5 more reboots and come crawling back to it, or they could decide they want to do a throwback season or another Once and Always special. So it's not impossible, but I just really feel like with them deciding to finally in production in New Zealand and stuff, they're not going to go back to that. Now, I think it's worth noting is that this was their plans, as far as he knew them, and their plans evolve and change. And as he even says in the interview, when talking about why Cosmic Fury and Season 2 existed, because, the reboot was taking longer than they thought, obviously we know now it's taking even longer than that in general, for multiple reasons, including currently the writers and actors strike, which is still going on as of the time I'm recording this. So that will set things back further. And, I've said before that I think that there was multiple big factors that went into why they've been delayed. I always bring up the pandemic and people say that was so long ago, that was not a factor, but I think it's not so much a factor in their production because people will say oh, other productions have gone on no problem. Why was PR having a problem? I don't mean that COVID stopped their production and then they just never got back on their feet. They hadn't even started yet. I think that it caused them to rethink, I've mentioned in previous videos, they were probably nervous about launching a movie in general, which is why we're not getting a movie, but then after the world situation changed and the way people see movies is different, it became let's say it was a 40%, 50% success chance for the movie. I think it made it 30 or 20 after, we are in this era now where even movies that normally would have done well, and there's really nothing wrong with the movies, aren't doing that well because people are more than willing to just wait for streaming or whatever. So I think that caused them to reevaluate, and I think that they were already continuously reevaluating it. And then that took so long, there's been, I think, at least 1 or 2 changes in leadership where the ideas and the plans have changed, and they had the Netflix deal and stuff like that. So I'm not saying, as I always say, I'm not saying there hasn't been some mistakes behind the scenes, but I legitimately think that there was some bureaucratic stuff and all kinds of out of their control factors. Just quite honestly, it's almost like the production is cursed, which is unfortunate. As far as what's going to happen in the future, none of us really know. Right now, all we've heard is that it's still on track, but we also haven't heard anything past Cosmic Fury, and they're going to be taking a break with the Lightning Collection for a year. I heard at least one person say that they heard from somebody that like, oh yeah, they're taking a break, but then they're going to come back and bring toys back and start talking about Reboot toys and the reboot or whatever. But, you know, that was like just some random like scooper source or whatever. I'm not going to take that as any sort of word. But I do think, I'm like almost 100% sure we will eventually see a Power Rangers reboot of some sort. Whether or not it's a version of the one they've been working on or something entirely different in the future remains to be seen. Because as of right now, I think there's one of two main options of what will happen. I think either effectively the reboot they've been constantly working on these last few years will happen after the strikes resolve, and it'll just take a while because they still have to do casting and stuff. But apparently the scripts are done, but they have to get the ball rolling. And it'll happen sometime between 2025, 2026, I would say. Maybe 2027 at the latest, just in terms of like if the current version gets off the ground as like soon as possible. Also, I think it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility they sort of soft shelve it for a bit and decide to wait until they really know what they want to do. Because I think in addition to all of the changes they've gone through with leadership and, like I said, them having to reevaluate their approach, I think that there is a lot of people that are working on it that don't know exactly what they want to do. So I'm confident it'll happen. I'm just not 100% sure it will be the one that they've been working on and it's like, oh, it's just on track. Like right now, I do think that's technically the plan. But I'm not gonna like say that it's out of the realm of possibility for them to soft shelve it. I hope they don't. I hope we just get this reboot and they work on it even if it takes a little bit. But I'm just gonna say it's not outside the realm of possibility. But I wanted to talk about this because again, I feel that there was a lot of denial about it and a lot of people that were like mad about even discussing the possibility because it's true. You do have scoopers sometimes getting wrong info and stuff and some people that have bad info, but people were being like, needlessly nasty. Like, I have no stake with Illuminati. I don't know anybody there or any sort of, like, bond with them. But I felt people were being needlessly toxic because they didn't want this to happen. And, like, anytime someone discussed it, it was like you were saying Voldemort's name. And, you know, there has been stuff that they've gotten sort of wrong, but they've also got some stuff right. And honestly, I think some of the stuff they got wrong was just stuff that was actually kind of right at the time. Meaning, like, sometimes scoopers will hear behind-the-scenes rumors of what's currently being discussed, and then the plan will change. So, like, technically what they heard was true at the time. I don't know. The point is, I think this just reclarifies some things that all the stuff we've been hearing about them doing just the reboot, no more of the current continuity, no more Sentai, is true. It's been true the whole time. What happens in the future after this and after the strike, we don't know yet. It could change, you know, it could completely surprise me and they could go back to adaptions, but I don't see that happening in the nearest future. But this just kind of fully confirms something. But at this point, there are some people where, like, every single employee at Hasbro could fly to their house and explain to them that this is happening, and they'd be like, that's just a rumor, it could mean anything. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about it. So, I am glad that, like, the stopgap seasons happened, because even though I liked Dino Fury Season 1, it would have felt kind of just underwhelming for the entire series to end on just a normal, like, 20-episode season, and I'm glad especially we got to have Cosmic Fury, because while I'm sure it won't be perfect, it's at least a season that they went in knowing, like, let's do some final season-y stuff, plus some anniversary stuff, and I think that's kind of cool. And I think they purposely did some stuff, like, maybe the reason they kept the dinos is they're like, oh, we want to end on dinos where we started with dinos. So I'm kind of grateful for the way it worked out in that regard. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.